humanity as an organism is made of a collection of cells called individual human beings. If you start treating one cancer cell, that cell talks to all the other cells and they all learn from each other. We need to get past all this silliness of contrived infection and start a wellness infection. We've got to start teaching wellness instead of disease. We've got to teach what creates health. That's why I wrote my book, How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy. It made me frustrated that I had to tell people how to poop. I had to tell how much water to drink, what real food was, how to breathe properly, how to stretch properly, how much movement they needed. It's like, if you just listen to your body, it'll teach you what to do. But people have been so conditioned to believe in authority figures that they don't even listen to their own bodies, even when it's causing them tremendous pain. So really, in a nutshell, this is what we have is we've got to break out of the hypnotic spell of education systems that condition us to think what others want us to think and learn how to think constructively. And I built my 4-doctor system because many of my most advanced students were coming to me going, Paul, you've taught us so much. And I can find so many things going wrong with people that sometimes I'm totally confused as to where to even begin, because some people have 10, 15 major problems going on at once. How is it that you decide what priority to do things and what's important first? And when I started hearing that from some really intelligent people, I realized that I had developed an internal system that I was using. So what I did is I did what would be called philosophically a reductio ad absurdum. I said, okay, I've got to reduce my approach and how I do this to the nuts and bolts basics so I can create a model that anybody can follow. Long story made short, I realized that there was 4 key elements to a living philosophy, and if they were not in place, you were in big trouble. And I modeled it off of the Roman system. I actually was asking my soul to help me do this. So soul means consciousness within. So the part of you that is all of you, not just your ego, your instincts, your intuition, your connection to the universe. That's your soul. The sum total of consciousness within any individual is the soul. So I just said, I really need to start paying attention to my own inner process, which was really the way I did things as a mechanic, the way I did things, working on military aircraft. There's a way you break systems down methodically so you don't do stupid things. Like as a mechanic, you're taught in school, there's 3 things an internal combustion has to have or it will not run. And you should never do anything to a car or any internal combustion system until you've identified these things. They are ignition, compression, and fuel. And people spend truckloads on all sorts of stuff without checking those 3 things. So I used the same concept. And when I was trying to solve this problem, one day I had at the time a big cupboard where I had myriads of courses that I'd studied and education courses that I'd bought and CDs with education courses on CD so I could listen to them while I was working out, and audio cassettes because this has been going on for a long time. And one day my soul directed me to this herbology course that I'd had for a long time. It was produced in something like 1995, and it was just a 2-disc herbology course. And I'm sitting there on a rest period from lifting weights, and the presenter said, in the Roman days, they believed that all illness came from an imbalance in one of 3 doctors: Dr. Happiness, Dr. Diet, and Dr. Quiet. And I went, oh my God, that is so absolutely accurate, except they're missing one doctor, Dr. Movement. And so having studied philosophy, I looked also at the morphogenesis cycle. So how does a caterpillar become a butterfly? And there's 4 phases. I also, in Hegel's philosophy, you have thesis, antithesis, synthesis. But Hegel left out the most important part, which is rest. Because if you keep going from one project to the next, you burn out. And having studied world religion, I looked at the Hindu philosophy that the whole universe is produced by the sound of God singing, which is Om. And Om, in its actual authentic spelling, is capital A, capital U, capital M underscore. Ah means I awaken. U means I'm dreaming. I'm living my dream. M means I'm falling asleep. I'm turning into an old man or an old woman. And underscore means end of cycle, rest period. So I saw that in all systems of the body that there were cycles from the 25,900 breaths a day the average person takes to the 4,000 times a day the average person swallows and engages their teeth, which is critical to know for orofacial and dental problems, to the 24-hour circadian cycle, to the ultradian cycle of breathing. Everything has inhale, exhale, pause. There's always a pause between cycles, even if it's very short. So what I saw is that our culture had been caught in this very deceiving model, which is an input-output model. If you put this much money in a bank account at this percent interest, or put this much investment in a certain stock at this percent interest, you'll get this much out in a year or 5 years or 10 years. But what happens is people forget in between the input and output is a little thing called the process, right? You can come up with a great idea for a widget, thesis, but when you go to test it in actual practical use, it breaks down or you find out the materials are not good enough. That's the antithesis. Then you go back to the drawing board and revise until you figure it out, and then you get synthesis, and then you've got to take a rest before you invent your next widget or you'll burn yourself out. And lo and behold, I studied alchemy and found that they timed the cycles of alchemy to the seasons. So thesis, my dream, goal, or objective is springtime, awakening to something new. The action phase, antithesis, testing it out, doing the training in the gym, trying to become a champion athlete, is antithesis, where we meet the competition that tests our mettle. Synthesis is when we finally figure it all out and come into flow or have flow states or reach our potential, but we have to rest at the end of the season. And I work with countless athletes, like tennis players that would play the United States circuit. Then they'd go to Brazil in the winter and play over there, and they never rested, and they were burning themselves out. Triathletes would come to California in the summer. They would do Europe, and they would come over here and train in our winter because it was like summer for them, and they would burn themselves out. So what I did is I put the 4-doctor model together and said to my students, the first thing you've got to do is identify a dream, goal, or objective that's significant enough in their life that they're willing to change to experience it and achieve it. Or you will not get results because there will be no sense of meaning to what you're doing. And they won't have a reason to change their life, because if they're getting paid to be sick, or they don't like their job to begin with, which is a big problem because research shows that about 75% of people surveyed worldwide say they hate their job. Okay, which means they're in the prostitute archetype. So, and I say if people cannot identify the dream, goal, or objective that's worthy of changing for, then you have to identify what their nightmare is. And that's the one thing that's going on in their life that's trapping most of their energy, vitality, and resources. And if that's healed, it unlocks the flow of life force energy so the body can begin to heal. So you have to identify a dream, goal, or objective that's of enough significance that a person's willing to grow and heal. Next, so that's number 1 in my system. 2 is balance. There's only 2 forces that create the entire universe: yin, the feminine; yang, the masculine. In the human body, yin is anabolic, yang is catabolic. All diseases are imbalances between the anabolic and the catabolic, or the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The unconscious regulation of the body, or subconscious if you want. So our job as therapists is to identify where are they out of balance with regard to physiological homeostasis. First, we have to reach just a benchmark state of health before we can train for professional hockey or climb that ladder past health and physiology. So step 2 is, where's the client or patient out of balance? Step 3 is choices. There's only 3 choices you can make in relationship to any person, place, or thing. The optimal, which is best for you and everybody involved on your dream team. The suboptimal, which gives instant gratification, but usually results in pain in relationships, like the people that are helping you. And then doing nothing. Doing nothing has 3 derivations. Doing nothing is a good idea when you're about to spend a lot of money on something or make a life change that you're not confident that you're doing the right thing, so you need to gather more information to make an intelligent decision. Doing nothing is what you do when you're in some kind of a heated argument and you're losing connection with the person, especially if it's somebody you love. If you can't stay connected at the heart, call a timeout and say, we're losing connection. I can't contribute to this discussion right now. I'll come back when I can stay connected and we can work on this together in a meaningful way. So that's called taking a timeout. The worst form of doing nothing is to be indifferent. Indifference is actually more dangerous than hate. Children raised by indifferent parents have a higher rate of disease and criminality than parents that beat their children and abuse them, because at least being beaten and abused is a form of contact that shows some degree of interest. And then we have 4 doctors. So the imbalances are either with your choices in life and about what is happy making, Dr. Happy, too much or too little movement, Dr. Movement, incorrect diet, too much or too little food or the wrong diet for you, and too much or too little rest. You cannot get by in life as a healthy 3-doctor person. You can be a happy person that exercises, that eats well, but doesn't get enough rest, and you'll be sick and broken. You can be a well-rested expert at exercise that eats well, but not have a sense of happiness or direction in your life and suffer from anxiety and depression. No matter how you slice it, there's no such thing as a healthy 3-doctor, 2-doctor, or 1-doctor person. It'll never work, not for the long run. So I basically taught my students, there's 4 steps you have to go. What do they love enough to change for? Where's the imbalances? What choices do they have to make? And you have to create values that are dream affirmative for quiet, diet, movement, and happiness. And your job is to orient your assessment and your treatment protocol so that based on your therapeutic skill and coaching skill, you identify what of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 15 things that are out of balance is the most important to start with. And that's the one that has the greatest knock-on or domino effect. For example, if someone's not getting enough sleep, that is going to be the most powerful thing you can do, and it's free. If someone doesn't know how to breathe right, you better get on that and find out why. For example, you cannot correct a breathing pattern in anybody eating processed sugar because it acidifies the blood almost instantly, which triggers hyperventilation to alkalinize the blood. So if you don't understand what a person's eating and you're trying to teach breathing, I hate to say it, but you're not very skilled.